Live from the studios of Media Training Worldwide in New York, this is Inside Communications, and I'm your host, Mike Bako. If you never thought that the world of beauty had an ugly side, well, think again. Today we go inside with Yellow Sky Agency's Marcy Clark and her campaign for the book, Beauty Wars. Coming up next on Inside Communications. Marcy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so this book, this author, Laura Condon, already had a reputation in the beauty industry as the lash doctor. She had a great reputation, but you didn't want to just focus on that specific aspect of her career with this book. What was your thought process behind that?
Well, Laura is, she's kind of a unique client in that she really was not a jack of all trades, but I would say a jack of four trades that she did really well. And so she's a makeup artist. She does makeup for one of the reporters for Good Morning America. She is known as the lash doctor, which is, she's a lash extension expert. That's a big part of her business and kind of a sexy part of the campaign. And she's an esthetician. She's a master of facials, waxing, everything, you name it. And then she was a new author of her book, Spa Wars, The Ugly Truth About the Beauty Industry. So we wanted to make sure and try to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible.
So one of the ways that you did take advantage of that is by offering complimentary services to some of the reporters and just basically trying to get her out in front of as much media as possible to do her demonstrations, to do complimentary services. How did that work out? You mentioned that she did have a jack of all trades reputation.
So, well, what is really fun about Laura is she has a big personality. She's totally authentic, 100% herself, and she has a really strong sense of self. So we thought early on, she was willing to do whatever it took, do complimentary treatments, give away free books, do what she needed to do. So we said, let's get her in front of these people, and she could be working on someone's lashes for half an hour and ask them questions, gossip, tell them all about her book, tell them what she's been up to, and and still at the same time she's doing Reiki on them and relaxing the client. And she really has this very dynamic personality. So that's why I said, let's do a series of events to get her in front of people.
So how important is that when you are dealing with a client to gauge their personality? Some people might not have that outsized personality like Laura had. How do you deal with that when someone isn't as outsized as her, and then how do you deal with it from her standpoint?
Yeah, I really try to assess early on someone's comfort level with being in front of people. So it's not always about my opinion of if they're likable and what they feel. It's really about them. They have it in their head how comfortable they are in front of people. So some clients, they love being on camera, being interviewed, being, out and meeting and greeting. And other clients feel much more comfortable kind of behind a desk, letting their work speak for themselves. I work with a lot of jewelry clients, fashion designers, and they can often, they're so talented that the speaking in front of people it's the give and take. That's not their forte.
And when Laura was speaking to the media, there's a racy aspect to her book. How did that play with the media, and how much of that did she want to divulge?
Well, she was really open to divulging. So there's funny chapters in the book. There's one about the certain New York housewife that is actually about her, and it was a secret, and we kind of decided to release that to the tabloids a little bit. And there's parts of the book that are about waxing obese women, and what's an esthetician really thinking when they're talking, when they're massaging down a really hot guy, and there's what happens when the spa door closes, sex in the treatment rooms, everything you can imagine. And some of it I was on the cautious side, and I'd be like, do you want to say this because this is the potential drawback? So I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So you were all in. Let's go inside the campaign. There were many steps to publicity for this book, starting
Yeah.
with a pre-launch party for the book. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the pre-launch party was at Downtime Massage and Skincare on the in Hell's Kitchen, and they had. I worked with them in previous events for my social club, the Women's Mafia. So what we decided to do was to have Laura be able, to meet as many people as possible. So she was doing her signature lash doctor treatments on about 8 people, mostly press and some kind of regular members of the Women's Mafia. And then they were providing a whole menu of services that were really state of the art, laser treatments and scrubs and all kinds of fun things. Mm-hmm. And so we made it small and intimate, and we actually got, especially because the book was, just about to come out and there was some buzz starting to happen. We had Essence Magazine, the New York Times, Brides Magazine, Vogue. So a lot of editors came out, they got the press kit, they met Laura, either she worked on them or somebody else worked on them, and they got to know her, and we started a relationship with Flo Anthony, who has a radio show, On the Go with Flo, and 30 markets. And we ended up, later that really paid off for us.
And how important is getting that one-on-one FaceTime with the reporter, as opposed to just sending out a press release, which sometimes, if you're a reporter working on a beat, you may get a dozen press releases in a given day, if not more. How important is it to build up that relationship of meeting someone face-to-face, even if it's only for 5 minutes, but having that procedure done, meeting them, and then furthering that relationship?
I think that it's the difference between a press happening and not happening. So I think it's the difference between a placement and no placement, because if sometimes you can get in there with just a press release, but from my experience, mostly it takes the calls, it takes the events, it takes offering them an exclusive angle, some kind of interview. If you aren't willing to be creative, then you're not doing your job.
Okay, and let's take the creative aspect of the second part, having the actual book party for the publication at Patricia Field's store.
Yeah.
How was that in terms of getting publicity?
So that was amazing. I was just pulling in every favor I could for Laura. So a good friend of mine runs the salon at Patricia Field, a very high-end, really cool salon. And they can do the most out there, hair color. They can do really, really fun environment that they provide. So we wanted to come in to have, we set up with them ahead of time that press could get at least one complimentary treatment, like a color or cut, something really valuable. And the public could get an inexpensive treatment at the event. And then we got the vodka, we got Chambord, we got beer, we got great food, and we made it, really fun environment. And the Patricia Field brand and the environment is already fun, so that made it just all together. It was just a really memorable event, and we got a lot of press coming out and 30 press mentions.
So you get 30 press mentions.
Yeah. Not including the radio.
Not including the radio, which was nationwide. So that's traditional press. The third aspect of the campaign was inviting editors, bloggers, tastemakers, influential people to the Arrojo Salon. And you might remember Nick Arrojo from the What Not to Wear shows. How important is it to reach out to those bloggers who are the tastemakers, the trendsetters, reaching out to them, getting them involved in the process as well?
I think it's really important. I've forged a relationship and started working with, I work with a lot of bloggers, but I forged a relationship and started working with the NYC Fashion Bloggers Meetup Group in New York, which is 80 bloggers rich at this moment, and they're growing all the time. And so I love doing events with them. We're planning a series of events throughout the year, that are gifting suites and that are, that feature fun kind of dynamic interactions with them. So for that event, we had Laura doing a book reading. So that was really fun because she's got this great personality, and we'd wanted to do a book reading, but we needed the right environment, something where, the hair and the treatments people were getting weren't way too involved, and where, we could bring everybody together, and it was the right amount of people, an intimate, educated setting. This was fashion bloggers and people in the beauty industry only. It was just press.
So what would you recommend for future campaigns for someone who doesn't have these traits, that they could have a complimentary spa service, or they could work with clients and press one-on-one? What about for those clients that don't have that?
Well, I think every client has something that makes them unique. And every client has something that, some way that they can engage and show their art in front of the press. So for a fashion designer, it might be making a custom garment for press, having some kind of contest around that. For a jewelry designer, it may be making a less expensive product line that can do, and doing a gifting suite and letting their work kind of speak for them. So, if you work with talented people, and I'm fortunate I have my own company, I get to work with only talented people, you really can get, there's ways to engage the press in a dynamic way, no matter who your client is. And I have a new client who's going to be walking across the country. Walking from New York to California to win this lady that he's very infatuated with, and to start a dating website, Dating Outside the Box.
Okay, so when you have a client like that, engaging with social media, how does that work? Certainly walking across country, he could tweet out where he is, have different meetups, engage with people on a state-by-state basis. How is social media changing a lot of the interaction that you're having?
Well, for that campaign, for sure, he's going to be tweeting on Facebook, every night. He's going to open up his laptop, and he's going to be, using his sat nav. He's a big social network himself, so he's going to be tweeting the whole time. And then back here in New York at base camp, we're going to be managing everything from, the walking outside the box, the website that just tracks him and gives people the opportunity to donate each day, pay for a meal for him, pay for a night in a hotel, offer. And along the way, people can come, they can walk with Scott, they can meet Scott, they can feed Scott, they can have Scott stay at their house, ladies can come tempt Scott. So
I don't think his girlfriend would like that too much.
Well, they're not official yet, so he's wooing her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could come back and tell us about that campaign.
I think it's going to be pretty great, and hopefully, he's in full beard now, so you got to meet him too. He's also not going to shave until he gets there, and he's already got this much beard.
All right, well that's going to be certainly an interesting thing to see at the very end of his trek across country. Marcy, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for going inside communications with us.
Thanks, Mike.